Yeah, namaste to all of you. A very warm welcome to this evening's Zoom call. Sorry for the delay. Unfortunately, Shafali ji's area broadband, there was some issue. So she's gotten onto in her, GPS and Geo. Let's see how stable is this. But then technology for us, that's a challenge. I think we'll have to live with it. Friends, friends, as you all know, Shafali ji has been a very respected blogger and social media activist. She's followed by a huge number of people in Twitter. She has been relentlessly fighting for the cause of the right cause. I'm not calling it right wing because there's a huge, Dheeraj, you can go FB Live, yes. So, we have a lot of terminologies thrown at us by the West, but for the right causes. And she's been hugely popular. She comes on the TV pretty regularly. And she's, most of us have met her in one conference or other, Lok Manthan, our own Pragya Bharati, we did the women's seminar where she was a speaker. But then she's also written certain books. One book particularly, the Goa Inquisition, every Indian should read it. Because the kind of nonsense that the Portuguese did has been conveniently buried. Nobody in the current generation knows about what happened. We all go to Goa to party and then drink, but nobody cares to understand the pain that this land has undergone. Shafali ji's book is literal, a mirror to all that's happened. I encourage all of you to kindly buy that book and read it. She's done extensive study on that, well documented, well researched book. So I would urge all of you to kindly look at that book. And as always, it's a pleasure to have such a, hardworking.
Excuse me for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so basically, today she's going to focus on what is happening in the social media from a perspective of the fight that is going on between the left-wingers and the right-wingers, and how there's a huge challenge for the people who are fighting for the dharma, for the cause of the Bharat, and for the right reasons. They face huge amount of challenges to the extent that Twitter blocks your handles and it doesn't support you in many ways. We've seen some handles, respected handles have been blocked, whereas people who abuse us big time, nothing happens to them. They get the blue ticks, whereas a lot of right-wingers, real right-wingers, they're nowhere there. They're not even given a blue tick. So this entire thing, she is an expert at that. So let's hear from her. We'll leave the floor open to her. Shafali ji, floor is yours.
Yeah, namaste. My name is Shafali Vaidya, and as Giridhar ji has very kindly introduced me, I'm going to talk to you about how the Hindu thought has been going on and what has been the journey so far and how the journey is going to continue, what is going right for us in social media and what is going wrong for us in social media. I hope you can hear me well.
Yeah, okay. There's some.
Okay, I'm assuming you can.
Yeah, maybe you could talk a little slowly so that I think the words get through it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. First of all, there is just a minor correction. Giridhar Mavindi told that I have written a book on Goa Inquisition. Well, I'm writing a book on Goa Inquisition, but the book that is I refer to mostly in my talks, it's a book written by my granduncle. It's a book called Goa Inquisition, The Terrible Tribunal of Torture, and it's by a gentleman called Erka Priolkar, who happens to be a granduncle of mine. So while all the praises for the book are well deserved, the book is not written by me, but I am in the process of writing a book, my own book on Goa Inquisition. And my journey as a Goan and how it has helped in shaping my worldview. But that book will probably come out end of this year. So that's just one thing I wanted to talk to you about. But let us talk about Hindu thought in social media. Giridhar Mamidi ji asked me to talk about Hindutva and social media, what is going right and what is going wrong. But I didn't want to use the word Hindutva. Do you know why? I would request all of you to just open your Google browsers and search Hindutva and social media and tell me what are the first 10 search results that you see. Is anybody doing that? If you do, you will find that if you search Hindutva and social media, forget the first 10 results, the first 100 search results that you see, you will find one article which is on Op India, which documents reasonably sympathetic point of view towards Hindutva and how the social media is using as a medium is using to propagate the Hindutva or our side or Dharmic thought or Indic thought or Hindu thought, whatever you might call it. But everything else is basically a link or papers by Sabrang, by Kapila Online, by EPW, by leftists basically dissing the term Hindutva and equating it to terrorism and equating it to everything that we are not, everything that Indic thought is not. But having said that, we often pride ourselves by saying that, oh, we have captured social media, we are the internet Hindus, quote unquote, we are the right wing, which I don't like the term for these very reasons. But is it really true? Is it really true that the Hindu thought or the Dharmic thought is dominating social media today as of now? To understand that, we'll have to go back a little bit. See, social media started becoming a phenomena somewhere in the decade between 2004 to 2014. That is when Facebook came up, that is when Orkut came up, that is when MySpace, LinkedIn, all of these social media platforms came into being. In those days, in that decade, between 2004 to 2014, UPA was ruling India. And at that point of time, they didn't think of social media as this emerging platform. They were secure in their thought that their point of view was reflected in mainstream media. They had their channels that put forth their point of view. They had their newspaper publications. And the common man, what the common person felt, they really had no platform to talk about it. That is where social media came along, and it provided common people like you and me, a platform where we could be active contributors. We could tell the world what we were thinking about without any gatekeeping, without any editorial control, without any censorship, and without anybody telling us what to say and what to show and how to express ourselves. But between 2004 and 2014, the UPA government and the leftist point of view, all the left academicians, the people in the government, the people in power, people in academia were caught unawares because they didn't realize that social media would be this powerful. Then came 2014 elections, and we all know, if you search the internet, you'll find 1,000 papers about how the BJP used social media to come into power, how Modi used Twitter, how Modi used Facebook, the whole 9 yards. But that is not the point. The point is, at that point of time, the establishment, which was primarily left liberal, they had the mainstream media, they had the news channels, they had the academia, they had the film world, they had the literary world, they had practically every platform of expression controlled very rigidly by them. And suddenly there came this upstart. If you want to use a Western metaphor, you could say that while the established order was the Goliath, the social media was the David. It just came from nowhere and it just took the whole thing by storm. And suddenly, people who were passive consumers were now active contributors to opinion making. People like me, many people who basically suddenly found that, hey, their voice resonates with a lot of people, and now they had a platform. Earlier too, there were many articulate people talking about the Indic point of view or the Hindu point of view, but unfortunately, they didn't have a platform. They didn't have a mainstream channel which would call them at prime time to hear their views. They didn't have book deals. They didn't have lucrative book contracts. Basically, they had no platform to talk about what they really felt. But now, because of social media, suddenly this field was leveled. Because I didn't need a newspaper to write a op-ed column. I didn't need a magazine to write my regular column. All I needed was a data connection, a phone, a Facebook account or a Twitter account, or a phone camera and my own YouTube channel. And I could basically tell the world what I was talking about, what I really felt passionate about. And there were a lot of people who had the same thoughts, but who didn't have access to a platform to air them. And the thought resonated. That is how a phenomenon called so-called, which is a misnomer, right-wing or Hindu internet warriors came about. And we all know that in 2014, the Hindu internet revolution did play a reasonable role in the outcome of the general elections. But having said that, in 2014, we were the first movers. We had realized the potential of social media, and our side, the Hindu side or the Dharmic side, had started making inroads in Twitter, inroads in Facebook, inroads in YouTube. But between 2014 and 2019, in the 5 years that the BJP came to power and suddenly Indic thought or Hindu thought was mainstream, it was no longer the fringe thought. It was no longer the thought that everybody ignored. People started getting called for television debates. People started getting called to write op-ed columns for mainstream newspapers. Even I have done that. But in these 5 years, between 2014 and 2019, the other side had realized that social media was a very powerful tool and that people had reduced their newspaper reading, people had reduced their television viewership, or rather, they were getting their news and views both from social media channels. So, what they did was they regrouped, and that is why in the last 5 years, those of you who are tracking the media will know that suddenly a whole slew of left liberal digital news platforms were born. So people who were used to be in mainstream media, who were writing in the Hindu, the same point of view, the same left point of view, they suddenly branched out and they started little outfits like Wire, Scroll, Quint, and they had tremendous amount of money. They had people investing from outside, they had foreign investors, they had desi investment firms or angel investors investing into them. So they had a lot of money. And suddenly in the 5 years, if you see in the digital media field, on the social media platform, you will see that there is a print, there is a squint, there's a quint, there's a scroll, there's a wire, which are all the same left liberal, so-called left liberal point of view, and they are putting it forth now. And they are very, very well funded, and that is why they are carrying out a sustained campaign against the Indic thought. For example, just 3 days, 4 days ago, the heinous or gruesome mob lynching episode that happened in Palghar, we've all seen the video, but the video came out 3 days after the incident already happened. And for these 3 days, if you see, the news did come in the newspapers, if you track it. But what was the news presented as? The news was presented as 3 thieves were lynched by a mob, 3 organ traffickers were lynched by a mob, 3 child traffickers, kidnappers were lynched by a mob. Those were the headlines given in some small time news on page 3, page 4. That was how the news was presented till the video surfaced on Sunday. Incident happened on Thursday. Video came out on the 18th, that's on Saturday, and massive outreach cycle happened on Sunday. And that is when the mainstream news channels, they started doing the debates, and suddenly the issue that was being pushed under the carpet became mainstream. But even after that, if you see the coverage of Wire or Scroll or Print or all of these so-called leftist digital platforms, you will see that they are trying to downplay the gruesomeness of the incident. They are denying that the 2 sadhus were Hindu to begin with, and they are saying that, oh, this is a caste issue, they belong to some scheduled tribe, or they were Gosavis, and the people who attacked them were scheduled caste, so it's a caste issue. there is nothing Hindu about it, and they are trying to downplay the seriousness of it. Some of them even said, it's a classic case of victim shaming. They said that, oh, that's because you guys didn't do anything when the mob lynching happened earlier, so that is why now it has come to bite you. I mean, I haven't even understood where this kind of vicious hatred comes from. But this is what the left liberal media does. It deliberately tries to divert the issue. It tries to minimize outrage, and it tries to tell you that if the two Hindu sadhus got lynched in Palghar, it is their fault. And secondly, it is not even a Hindu issue. So right now, it's like to mention that there were two Hindu sadhus is allegedly communalizing the issue. But imagine, it's been now months, but we still remember the names Junaid, Akhlaq, Pehlu, Tabrez, because the media has never let us forget the names. But how many of us will remember the name of the two sadhus, Maharaj Kalpavriksha Giri and Maharaj Sushil Giri, even 1 month from now? How many of us remember Ankit Saxena? How many of us know Prashant Pujari? How many of us know Ramalingam, the catering contractor in Tamil Nadu who was killed by a mob from other community? That is because the media wants us to forget. They will not even name Hindu victims. They will deliberately say either their profession, or they will say, oh, this person or men got killed, but they will not tell you the names. It is a very well thought out strategy, and the noise is so much that there is constant propaganda. And many a times the Hindu handles on social media are basically only countering misinformation one after another. It's just one outrage cycle after another. That is what I end up doing half the time, because every hello.
Yeah.
So somebody has done something, and by the time you counter that misinformation, some 10 other news items have already come all over the news cycle, and then you're fighting that fire. So the point is, we are too few and we are constantly fighting fires. That is what is happening to the Hindu side on social media right now. And while we say that Twitter sets an agenda, Twitter starts conversations, which is all true, but the point is, how many of these conversations are started by the Hindu side? Whereas the other side has a very, very well thought out plan. They know who are the enablers, who are the disseminators of information, who are the spreaders, who are the people who just amplify the information, and who are the people who form the broad network that supports the people who are actually battling there in the social media for them. Whereas our side doesn't have that strategy. That, I think, is the biggest weakness of the Hindu side on social media. Ideally, the Hindu side should aim at forming a global network of all Hindu organizations, of all Hindu handles, of all Hindu causes, and make sure that they all speak in the same general direction. There shouldn't be any discord between them. There shouldn't be any dissonance between them. Ideally, that should be the aim of the Hindu side. What the left does is, one of them will write a paper. It will be a very mediocre paper, but it will be published by one of their publications like Kafila Online or EPW or something like that. And then within a year, there'll be 15 other people who will cite that paper. And they will only cite each other's papers. So suddenly the paper will have 6 citations, 10 citations, 11 citations. Nobody goes to check those citations. But then the paper becomes accepted, it becomes mainstream. And then when you go to Google and when you search, you'll suddenly find those papers right on top because of Google's algorithms. So you never get to see the other point of view. Similarly, because the humanities and all the media schools and everything are controlled again by the left side, they groom and they identify talent very quickly. I remember 22 years ago, when I was studying mass communications, one of the first things that our professors made us do was to watch that horrible film by Anand Patwardhan called Ram Ke Naam. And they made us discuss it. There was no other point of view that was even tolerated. Forget about acceptance. Even if you wanted to say that this is a propaganda film, you were shouted down by your classmates, by your professors, by everybody. This happened 22 years ago. But the tragic part is, now recently, my niece is studying journalism in a journalism school in Bangalore. So she called me and she said, "Do you know what movie we saw today and we had a discussion on?" I said, "Which one?" I had this premonition what she was going to say. So she said, "It's Ram Ke Naam by Anand Patwardhan." It's been 22 years and media schools are still showing the same movie. And our side hasn't been able to crack that market and make sure that here are some movies from our side and this is what you should be watching. The Supreme Court has given a judgment in favor of the Ram Mandir. Despite that, media schools are still showing a propaganda movie made by a communist filmmaker called Anand Patwardhan called Ram Ke Naam. What can be a greater travesty than that? And this sort of institutionalized prejudice against Hindu thought, against Indic thought, against the term Hindutva, quote unquote, which is basically nothing but essence of Hinduism, has been now made mainstream. And even though social media is putting up a credible defense, what we are doing is not enough. My next part of the talk, I'm going to talk about how we can improve upon this situation, because we all know what is the situation, we all know what is the problem, but how are we going to find this consistent and deliberate, calculated campaign of misinformation directed against Indic or Hindu thought? First of all, we need to have institutions that groom scholars, writers, filmmakers, meme pages, YouTubers, bloggers, everybody. And there should be somewhere a national database, a sort of a loose network of such people, so that if somebody makes a movie on Ram Mandir, then everybody who has some influence on social media should be able to share that movie link and should make sure that it reaches its followers. That is how the left works. So one stupid journalist writes a mediocre article about the 2002 riots. Within 2 days, it will be disseminated by 5,000 handles. And this is how that becomes a mainstream article. Even though it's written shoddily, the research is bad, there is no data, there is nothing in it. But just because it's amplified so much, that is why people start believing that it's the truth. Especially school children. For example, if my child, 14-year-old child, is told to write an essay on Hindutva, what is he or she going to do? They are going to go to Google and they are going to type in Hindutva and see what comes up. What comes up? Wikipedia page. Wikipedia page, it is all rabid anti-Hindu stuff. And Op India has done several articles on how the Wikipedia algorithms and Wikipedia editors are so biased that they deliberately make changes in articles to have a massively anti-Hindu tilt to their articles. But that is how minds are influenced. That is how we're losing generation after generation after generation, because the first search results that they see are all rabidly anti-Hindu. So what we need to do is to have more institutions. Pragya Bharati is doing a great job in this regard, but there should be more Pragya Bharatis in every state, in every district, in every field, and they should be identifying talent from colleges. Stand-up comics. Stand-up comics are a great way to go if we identify young people with a great sense of humor who can think on their feet and give them a platform, organize stand-up comedy competitions, and organize these people and make sure that they have the YouTube channel and their content is disseminated. We need to write more books. There are so many topics of our own history which sporadically people have been blogging about, but there has been no attempt to write scholarly works on it. For example, Goa Inquisition. Goa Inquisition was one of the longest running courts of torture anywhere in the world, not just in India. But there's only one good book on it, written by Mr. Akka Priyolkar, who happens to be my great uncle. So when I was doing my talk on Goa Inquisition and my daughter was helping me out, when she was searching for the material to photographs and all to put into my presentation, she saw the names like Goa Inquisition, A.K. Priyolkar, and then Shefali Vaidya. She was like, in all these years, nobody has talked about it. But that's the truth. Because we don't talk about our own history. Goa Inquisition is just an example. But in every state, in every district, we will find so much material that people can write books on, people can write blogs on, people can make small documentary films on. That is what we need to cultivate. We need to cultivate talent, local talent, talent in local languages, which basically identifies local content and turns it into mainstream. Nowadays, it's not that difficult to make a movie. If you got a good camera and if you take a few editing lessons, anybody can make a movie. And people are so hungry for content that if you give them good content, they're just going to lap it up. But what we need content creators. We don't need just distributors. Right now, what is happening is a lot of people, lot of us, not just me, but a lot of people who write on the Indic side, we have thousands of followers who do a very, very good job of amplifying the information. But what about creating original information? 5 people cannot fight disinformation. You will need literally thousands of people who are always on their feet, who are always tracking what the other side is saying and who are countering the information, which people are doing on social media, but it needs to be a more institutionalized job. Thankfully, now at least we have space in mainstream media, in all the newspapers, at least in the opinion pages. There, if you write well and if you put forth your point of view in a cogent way, you'll always find space. Even the newspapers and news channels have realized that they cannot give platform to only one point of view, which is why the Hindu side is always called for debates, for analysis. Their views are respected because they know there's a market for it. But we need to have more people, more of our people, younger people, coming forth and producing original content, writing it is teaching in humanities, and constantly producing work that is of great scholarship. Meenakshi Jain ji, whom I interviewed, she's written great books on Ram Mandir and Ayodhya, 2 books, which till today are seminal books on the issue. I mean, if you search Ram Mandir and Ayodhya movement, the best resources that you can find are Meenakshi Jain, Dr. Meenakshi Jain's books. But she was telling me of the difficulties that she faced in finding publishers for works which are scholarly works. They are not opinion works. I mean, she has cited references for every sentence literally that she has written. But even for such scholarly work, she was finding it difficult to find publishers just because the subject was taboo. But now the books are published, but again, how do you take them to the readers? How do you ensure that the books are not just lying in some library, but they're actually read by people? So what public intellectuals can do, public intellectuals are people like me who act as a bridge between researchers and common people and make sure that what the researchers unearth, it is reached to the common people in a way that they can easily consume, which is where all the blogs come in, which is where all the YouTube channels come in, which is where all the memes come in, which is where all the videos come in. So we need to have platforms which basically diversify and do different things at a time. So some people will produce memes of great quality. Some people will produce infographics of great quality. Some people will produce little movies, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute movies on certain issues. And that is how you flood the social media platforms with information, putting forth your point of view in a cogent manner and ensure that it is amplified by people who have the wherewithal to amplify it. So this is how we need to go ahead in a very planned way. There are organizations which are already doing it. There are certain universities, Indic universities like Chinmay Vishwavidyalaya, like Amrita University, which are doing a lot of work, a lot of good scholarly work in the dissemination of Indic thought. There is an organization like Indic Academy, which is identifying scholars, and there are Parivar organizations like Pragya Bharati, like Pragya Pravaha, like Sanskar Bharati, which are also doing a great job. But time has come now to come together, work together, form a network, and make sure that everybody is on the same page. There will be disagreements, there will be different points of view, there will be personal disagreements as well. But we have to learn to keep these disagreements private and make sure that the consensus is built publicly. that is the only way we'll be able to make a cohesive platform to put forth the Hindu point of view. At this, I think I'll stop and I will take questions if there are any.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Shafali ji. Maybe you would want to speak a little bit about the kind of what do you say, attacks that happen on people on our side of the divide, especially if they're women. I mean, I'm sure you have faced a lot of nonsense. So how does this happen, and then how does one handle it? Because when youngsters are getting into it, they will be put off almost immediately. They could be scared. Probably your experience should help people understand how to face this and what to be cautious about and where to go about. Because one wrong statement, even Twitter could block you. So how does one handle these pitfalls?
That's a very good question. In fact, when I go to talk at seminars or conferences, one of the questions that I'm asked, one of the first questions that I'm asked is, how do you handle the abuse that comes your way? And how do you ensure that you're always on track? First of all, there is only one way to handle abuse: to develop a thick skin. You have to make sure that the words don't scare you. And eventually, initially everybody gets troubled. I got troubled too. And especially if you're a woman, you get a lot of sexual slurs, you get a lot of abuses, you get a lot of attacks on your family, which has got nothing to do with your point of view. It's not pleasant. It's definitely not pleasant. But then it also helps you makes you stronger. And once you realize that they're just words, and the words, they're just words, right? Words lose their sting at some point of time. And once that happens, then you sort of become totally blasé about it. At least now I can stand up in a room full of 1,000 people and say, okay, that person called me a slut, but that's his problem because it's a reflection of his thoughts, not a reflection on me. But that equanimity, that strength comes with experience. But for that, you need to be able to keep writing, and eventually you will have people on your side. See, right now also I get a lot of abuses, but I don't need to answer them. The minute somebody abuses me, there'll be 15 other people from my side who will be taking on that person. So I don't have to bother about it. I just have to put forth my point of view and then move on. Half the time, I don't even engage with the people who abuse because they're faceless trolls. And one thing you need to realize that the most of people who will abuse you in the worst possible words are not even real people. They're faceless trolls. So you need to understand that you don't need to give such an importance to their words. You just basically block and move on most social media platforms. That is one way. Engage only with people with whom you can have a possible point of engagement, who are capable of listening to you even if they are opposing your views, but they also have a certain standing. It's worth only engaging with such people. It's not worth engaging with faceless one. Secondly, the threat of suspension, it's always there. Magic, come here. Sorry, that's my dog. So the threat of suspension on social media, Magic, be quiet, is always there. But what you need to do is you need to understand that there are people who are reporting our handles, the Indic handles, every day. I get information that my handle is reported by some 600 people every day. They're waiting for me to make one mistake. So you need to realize there are certain words that Twitter considers inflammatory. So for example, you can't use the word kill. The algorithm recognizes the word kill, and if there are enough people reporting you for that, you can simply say, I watched Kill Bill the movie. It's got nothing to do with any political content also, but you've used the word kill, and the algorithm only sees that word. So if 5,000 people say, oh, they've used inflammatory language, the bots in Twitter, the algorithms in Twitter, they will search that word and they will say, okay, 5,000 people have reported against this ID for having used the word kill. So this ID needs to be suspended. And after that, you can appeal, but very rarely do you get your viewers back or your readership back. So you need to be very careful, and you need to be very careful about not abusing. Sometimes what happens is that we get carried away, and the other side will deliberately make inflammatory statements. They will attack your gods, they will attack your rituals in really bad words just to inflame you. Particularly the women on their side do that as a strategy. So they will say something incredibly bad about Ramayana, about Mahabharata, about Sita, about Ram, just to provoke people on our side. And half the time, we have a lot of young people on our sites, and Twitter being a very quick medium, they get inflamed and they will reply in using some abuse. And then they will cherry pick those one or two abuses, and then they'll say, look at these Hindutva trolls, they abuse us so much. So we need to understand that we need to be polite. We need to choose our words carefully. And right now, fake news is a really big problem. And no matter how big a handle you are and how much efforts you take to verify if the source is correct or not, you will make mistakes. I've also made mistakes. I've also shared videos a couple of times which I've realized are not even from India. Now I don't do that so often because I always make it a point to check, cross check, and not make it an instant reaction. But I have made mistakes in the past. When you realize you make a mistake, just delete with an apology, with a sincere apology, because everybody makes mistake. This medium is like that fake news is everywhere. And it is not true that only social media spreads fake news. There are mainstream newspapers, mainstream channels which spread fake news, and they don't even apologize for it. For example, just 2 days ago, NDTV did a story where they said that people in Arunachal Pradesh, I think, Arunachal Pradesh or Nagaland, I don't remember, that they killed a cobra because they were hungry because of COVID situation, and they were not getting anything to eat, so they killed a cobra and they ate it. So Kiran Rijiju called them out. He's a minister, but he called them out and he said that this is not true. It's a wildlife crime. There is nobody who's starving, and that's why this happened. So NDTV did a sham of a regret or an apology, and then they said that this story was really about a wildlife crime. If it was a wildlife crime, then why did you say that people killed a cobra because they were not getting anything to eat? Obviously, because they wanted to give it a fake news spin, right? And this is what mainstream media does day after day after day. And they never even apologize for it. For example, Indian Express, the other day, there was a big issue. Arnab also took it on Republic. They published a fake story, and this is not the first time Gujarat patients, corona patients, are segregated on the basis of their religion. Muslim patients are treated in one ward, and Hindu patients are treated in another ward. The doctor whom they had quoted said that they had misquoted me. I never said something like this. The state government said nothing like this happened. The central government said nothing like this happened. But Indian Express had published the fake news, and US, some agency which has got nothing to do with India, had published the article. And theirs is such a well-entrenched network that today you do a fake story in India, knowing very well that it's a fake story. Within 2 days, it will be carried by the Guardian, which will be carried by the Independent, which will be carried by the Wall Street Journal, which will be carried by the New York Times. And the person who has first published the story might apologize after 3 days, which is what happened in that Chinchpokli railway collapse. If you remember, there was a railway bridge that collapsed in Bombay, I think 2 years ago. And Hindu did a story. I still remember the name of the journalist. It was from Dubai. She did a story based on an 8-second video and said that in that bridge disaster, a dying woman was molested because a person was trying to touch a woman here and there. And the story was taken up by BBC, it was taken up by Independent, it was taken up by Guardian, because it's a very masala wali story, right? In India, a dying woman is molested. Obviously, these international publications want that image of India to be published internationally. After that, on social media, people countered with longer videos of the same incident taken from different angles, where it was clearly seen that the man was actually trying to save the woman. He was trying to get her out of that stampede where she was stuck in that bridge collapse. But by the time it was too late. So Hindu actually published a clarification after 3 days, a small 4-inch clarification, 4-line clarification. But by the time, fake news was everywhere. Even now, if you search on Google, dying woman molested in India, you'll still find links in Independent, you'll still find links in BBC, and they are still active. The person who was defamed in all this probably is just a poor guy. If it was somebody well connected, that person should have sued the Hindu for destroying his reputation forever. But that is what mainstream India does. Mainstream media does. So if somebody tells you that only social media spreads fake news, that's complete balderdash. Mainstream media also spreads fake news, and mainstream media has a greater responsibility. Remember, they have mechanisms, they have editors, they have fact checkers. It is their job to ensure that fake news is not published. I am just a private citizen. I don't have the resources at my disposal where I can go and collect videos or where I can check if they're authentic or not. So if I make a mistake, it's understandable. But if they make a mistake, it's unforgivable. But if you analyze fake news being spread on social media, you'll find that so many big names like the Hindu, the Indian Express, NDTV, they've all spread fake news and none of them have apologized. In fact, even politicians like Shashi Tharoor, he published a fake news based on some fake source. And when it was pointed out that it's fake, he actually had the audacity to say that, okay, I realize that the news is based on the tweet I made was based on fake news, but I'm not going to delete it because it's already been spread so many times. And what does it mean? It means that he's not even sorry about sharing fake news. So you have to deal with it smartly. If we are on the index side, remember that you're already playing with a little bit of disadvantage on your side. From trigger words like kill, like moron, stupid, there are some words which Twitter, Islam. So there are some words which Twitter identifies as keywords. So ideally not use those words, and make sure that your tweet is worded in such a way that nobody can find faults with it. That is one thing that you must do.
Okay, I mean, that's a real good takedown on this whole issue. But then, what do we do with this fake news? The point is, Rajdeep Sardesai, who's been hauled through the courts, he apologizes after 10 years. Like what you said, the damage is already done. Do you think that the government needs to bring in some regulation, or is it the civil society which has to act? I mean, there has to be costs for doing some kind of a fake news. Now, governments, for instance, Kerala government issued an ordinance, right? Now they can arrest people and whatnot. So they are arresting people who are spreading fake news for this Chinese virus related stuff. So do you think we need to have some kind of a regulatory mechanism or some kind of a a system or a law where we can really control this?
I am not in favor of such a law. 66 sections 266, I think, was a law like that. I think it was section 260. I'm not good with numbers. But that law is very repressive, and then it's very easy. It will backfire on the index side, first of all. Because many of the newspapers and many of the mainstream journalists already have legal departments defending them. It is people like you and me, ordinary citizens, who might sometimes slip, who will be targeted by using this law. So freedom of expression should be absolute. And this medium is like that. The nature of the beast of social media is like that. Because the news comes from so many sources and it is kind of like very diffused, it's very difficult to have a law. I mean, there are enough laws in the criminal code already. The point is how to enforce them. And the point is to make sure that people are hauled through the system and somebody keeps following it up to its logical conclusion. We miss out on that. Our side also needs to have dedicated legal cells which find and track such news and which keep filing criminal complaints against such people and ensure that the existing laws are used. I am not in favor of any extra law to be used to control social media, because ultimately what will happen, that is what the mainstream media wants. That is why they do periodically these stories on let's talk about trolls. Trolling is very common in social media. They want gags on social media because their monopoly is being affected, because their control on news dissemination is being threatened. So that's why they want the government to bring in a law to control social media, to control WhatsApp, to control Facebook, to control Twitter. It's a very, very detrimental thing. It is much better to have dedicated legal cells on our side, which basically track and counter fake news in a legal way. So when Sagarika Ghosh tweets that there was semen in the holy balloons, which was found to be fake, why was a criminal complaint not launched against her using the existing laws? Our problem is we are not following up. We just do outrage on Twitter for 2 days and then forget all about it, which is exactly what I said about the Palghar issue also. That there was outrage on the 20th and 19th. This is 22nd and we are already moved on. We are already talking about something else. But that's not true about the other side. They are very dedicated. So that is something that we need to learn. We need to learn tenacity. We need to learn to be behind a cause and to see it through its logical conclusion.
Yeah. But I think what happens is even the courts are not really cooperating. They take their own time, or in some cases they will penalize the complainant himself and say, a frivolous complaint, and they can,
but you have to keep doing it now. You don't have a choice. It is very wrong to expect the government to pass a draconian law to control public opinion. That means half of us will be
true.
in the dock someday or the other.
True, perfect. Let's step back a bit. Let's say we had only the newspapers at one time, then came Doordarshan, then came NDTV, and then came so many channels. And now we have Twitter and Facebook, right? How do you see what next? I mean, Twitter does have, probably there's a cycle for everything, right? And once that is gone, how do you see this panning out as we go in the future? For instance, China has got its own,
We badly need a truly Indian social media network, which has a huge reach, which has acceptability. Because right now, all our data, basically Twitter decides how many people see my tweet. I don't have any control over it, right? So we need a desi medium, a fully Indian-owned social media platform, which Gab tried to do for a while, Gutarku tried to do for a while, but it didn't work for whatever reason. So we need the next big idea to come from India, kind of like what China does. And how the future will pan out, one thing is sure, it's going to be far more audiovisual. It's far more going to be video-driven content and short content, because people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. So somebody who cracks the art of making short 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute, bite-sized movies or dedicate to a certain point of view or certain issue, they are really going to be very popular in future. Memes are going to be popular in future. Instagram is a medium which the young are using more and more. So again, the content is very visual driven. It has memes, it has infographics, it has good pictures, it has excellent artwork. So that is the way the future is going to pan out. Text is going to be text, or long articles or blogs are already a thing of past. Even now, if you write a 2,000-page article, you will find half the people replying on my Facebook page saying, too long, I didn't read.
Yeah. I mean, what you said is perfectly right. We don't know how things are going to change, especially after Chinese virus is controlled. Probably we'll see a lot of people sitting home and, technology platforms undergoing a lot of changes.
Yeah.
We really don't know. Probably it's a new world we're going to wake up to.
Yeah. But video is definitely going to be the next big thing. So my advice to all the young people would be to acquire skills in video editing, music mixing, shooting, making good films using your camera. It's an invaluable skill. And in the future, that is what is going to dominate, at least in the next decade or so.
Great. So let's open it up for a question answer session, madam. So Dheeraj, I'm sure you have opened the chat, and so people can now send their messages, and whoever has a question can raise your hand, and then we'll sequentially call you. Sudhindra ji, please go ahead. Yeah.
Shefali ji, namaste.
Namaste.
I think you briefly touched upon this point of having an alternative medium, because it's pretty scary that people get emotionally blackmailed and traumatized with the kind of venom that's used by the other side against us. And it's actually a catch-22 situation. On the one hand, we have trolls from the other side who are spewing venom on us. And on the other side, when we kind of even retaliate or make our own point of view in an assertive manner, we get blocked or we get kicked out of the social media. So as you rightly pointed out, this one option is to have another medium that's entirely Indian. But anything else that you feel we should be doing in the immediate short to medium terms?
Again, unity helps a lot. So if you have groups, which basically what the other side does, right? They have these Twitter groups whose job is only to report some handles every day. That's all they do. So every day there are dedicated 300 people who track everything that I tweet, and their only job is to report my tweets, report my tweets, report my tweets. So far, I have managed to steer clear because I know what Twitter algorithm doesn't like or whatever, and I'm never abusive. So my tweets have so far not been, my account has not been suspended, but it's possible that it will be at some point of time. I mean, I might also make a slip. It happens to everybody. But that is what our side can also do. Reporting to doxing, reporting to the employers, which is what the other side does regularly. But we have to have a strategy and do it.
Yeah, but then, like what you said, we need a central coordination team or some kind of, like what they're doing. You need some kind of a consolidation. How do you see that happen? Who should do it? I mean, I don't see anybody taking that initiative.
See, that is another thing. That is the Hindu thing, right? We don't have a central authority. We will never have. There is one doctrine, there is one book, there is one thing who will tell everybody what to do, and people will do it. So it has to be decentralized. That is our nature. That is the nature of our thought. So it has to be decentralized, but there has to be a loose cohesion. Ours will never be a network where there'll be one central agency that tells people what to do and everybody does the same thing. It's never going to work. What we will have are different nodes, but those nodes have to sort of loosely come together, and to some extent it's already happening. But it needs to be done at regular, at state levels, district levels, and organizations like Pragya Bharati can play a big role in this, because there at least there is a loose institutional structure.
Yeah, see, what we are trying to do is, in fact, we did hold a few workshops for social media bloggers and things like that we have done. Probably we could do that for the state level. Maybe we could request you to come and help us, on one of those.
That will work. Just one day, how to write tweets, how to make sure that you use language palatable to Twitter, what are the keywords to avoid. These are simple things which you sort of learn once you spend enough time on the medium, but it will be very helpful for young people to have such a kind of a workshop.
See, what happens is some of the people who are quite regular on the Twitter from our side in, let's say, Telangana, Hyderabad, they hardly get 40-50 people who have either liked it or retweeted it. So what happens is the content is good. What they're talking is it's decent enough, but they don't have a traction. So that is another problem that I find for most of the tweets that are happening here. But even Kishan Reddy ji, till he became the MOS, he used to have 5 or 6 likes or tweets. Right?
See what
now,
happens?
because he's MOS, it has improved a bit. But it's, I mean, as a minister, he should have had so much of traction that's not happening.
So that is again, I mean, that is something that I have realized, that if you give good content and if you give it consistently without expecting it to reach a lot of people, see, we get disheartened very quickly. We judge our content in terms of the likes we get or the reach. But that is not necessarily true. Nobody achieves a huge reach within 10 days of being on Twitter or within 10 months of being on Twitter also. It's an organic growth. So the first 1,000 followers are the hardest to find. It is like in wealth. The first $1 million or 1 million rupees that you make are the hardest to make. Once you make that, then the growth is exponential, because then you keep investing that money and that gives you more money. So it's the same thing with social media followers. Your first 100 followers, your first 1,000 followers are the hardest to get. But once you reach that critical mass, after that it just kind of gets, the circle just keeps getting wider. So the important thing is basically just to keep giving good content and keep putting it out there. if nothing else, it will have a good data bank for somebody else to work with.
Okay, sure, great. CSR Prabhuji, CSR Prabhu Garu, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear
you. Madam, I am asking from an intellectual point of view. There are narratives, some of the narrative points of the left, for example, on social justice and socialistic altruism, or welfare of the downtrodden. These kind of thoughts are not really new to the, for example, the Vedic literature. In the Rig Veda, we have plenty of statements about welfare of the large number of people, and dharma as the social welfare of Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukaya. So many statements are there. Some of them are written on the parliament also.
Yeah.
So now that those thoughts are not unique, or they cannot be monopolized by the left ideology. Is what I am trying to point out. What is your opinion on that?
Agreed. But for that, our side also needs to take back that narrative, no? We have to, what you have said, we have to make sure that it is being used. So then the left is trying, for example, in the Palghar mob lynching incident, the left is trying to give it a social justice spin. It is not saying that it's a mob lynching of Hindu sadhus. It is saying, oh, these men were from the Gosavi caste, they weren't Hindu at all. And that they became sannyasis because they were fed up with the inequality or some such bullshit. So that is something that we need to keep countering, and we need to give references about our own history, about our own thought.
Yeah, one more interesting common point I found. You see, there is what is called traditional knowledge, traditional science and technologies. We have ancient Indian science and technology, and all that you must be knowing that. So I did a database development on this in Government of India about 10-15 years back, a database on traditional sciences and technologies of India. So now these leftist people also were showing interest in that. They had a unit called People Science Congress.
Okay.
So they took it as people science, the native science of India. So there is a common point there also, not only in dharma. Dharma is a common point, and people science, native science, other than the Western science.
Yeah.
So there are certain things which we can beat them in their own ground in the narrative. That's my opinion. Like that, we can find many others.
Sure. Yeah, I agree your point. With your point.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Professor Murthy Garu, please go ahead, sir.
Hello, can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Hello, Shefali ji, I'm very happy to hear your lecture, a comprehensive lecture, being in the
Thank you, sir.
Being in the field. We have been actually, as you said before, the use of this so-called social media. We have been doing the same work since decades, but the response, as you said, is very, very small. Now it is increasing because you said it is social media that is one main reason for 2014 achievement. Right. Now, what I want to know from you is there any way of finding the impact parameter of the so-called leftist Twitters or articles or whatever it be in the society? Is there any official scientific way? Because I feel the so-called leftists are now isolated. Nobody is going to hear him. That is, they write and they read. And even other people, you and I read, we read always in between lines. So what I feel is the whole society is now oriented towards our national ethos and thought because of the works of several organizations, and since decades, you may call it RSS, Vidya Bharati, Samskar Bharati, or Ramakrishna Mission, or Sri Sri, several traditional, even such as Sai Baba, all these things. So I think there is no danger for this. I think we are giving more importance to these fellows which write this and that. Just ignore and write, as you said. Just ignore them. Go with our agenda of writing and meeting people, preaching people, talking to people. What do you say?
I agree fully.
Right.
We need to focus on creating our own narrative rather than being reactive all the time. That is very, very right.
Just for example, even NDTV writes this and that. I always give a retort. My dear friend, you are making this is it a news or is it a suggestion? Why you are writing all these things? You don't lose your credibility. Write only credible news and credible views. I always put it like that even on the reply. So there are several people who are able to now. Now all these people are coming into whole. Actually, I have at least 200-300 people all over the world who are watching all these things, and so we have to create our own, what is called, our own thought process that goes to this is all only educated masses, only educated people. They are down to town and village and all that. There is another thing that they have to. So we have to target the youth and let us see
Sure.
plan of action, how to reach the youth, the future of the nation in our own way.
Right.
That's my
Sure.
suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anil Sadanand-ji? I'd say, Anil Sadanand-ji, go ahead. Yeah.
Sir, good evening. Madam, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Anil Sadanand. I run an NGO called Balia Foundation, and I'm from Mysore, Karnataka.
Okay.
Mysore being one of the yoga capitals of India.
Yeah.
So here, so once in a way, when the foreigners accumulate here, we have a yoga programs. In that, unfortunately, see our local media being a Hindu media itself, they speak very adversely of our country. Likewise, I don't want to take, but I'm forced to take this because you being a lady, I cannot. But this is a close. We can speak. They say has become a rape capital of the world or something like that, and it is so unfortunate. And as rightly the professor said now earlier to me, I think I don't know whether to ignore these people or whether to counter them. See, now we know that the Hindu population in this country is more or less to 70% or 75%. I don't know the exact data, but nevertheless, in this 70%, most of them, all of them need not be sympathizing one political party which holds the India ideology. So likewise, they are disintegrated.
True.
So whatever the followers we have with us, we have Pragya Bharati and Ramakrishna Mission and so many other organizations. We all, if we can consolidate our own people and giving more importance, and if you people like you also come forward once in a way, would come and do workshops here, it will be great so that we can keep intact of our own people. So what is your take in that?
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I've always said that unity is the need of the day. That we need to have this network of greater Hindu thought, greater Hindu unity, and we all need to work towards it. So it's a very good idea.
Yeah, like I said, probably Pragya Bharati would do a special workshop on social media, and we would definitely want you to come and
in
help
fact,
us out.
Pragya Bharati on a national level should do it at every state level, So basically, a few people who are very active on social media can come and train some people from the state, and they then in turn do it on a smaller basis at non-district level or city level or whatever. Because I cannot obviously go everywhere, but I can come to Hyderabad and maybe Chennai, and somebody else in Chennai could train other people. So like that, something.
True. So what we are planning is actually we are planning for the southern states. Okay. Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra, Telangana, and Tamil Nadu.
Yeah.
For the southern states, we have different organizations. We are called Pragya Bharati here in Telangana, but it's called Prabuddha Bharat in Karnataka. I think you visited them also earlier. Then you have Desiya Chintanai Kazhagam in Tamil Nadu, and you have Bharatiya Vichara Kendram in Kerala. We have different names actually. Probably we'll coordinate, and maybe Hyderabad, maybe Bangalore, or whatever. We will try and see how we can, do a coordinated effort to especially address the social media issues.
Yeah, it should be a training workshop. It should be actual training workshop where people come and take notes and write tweets and learn about that.
Probably we'll do workshop. It's like a workshop. Actually, people who tweet, they will actually see what to do, how to happen. Pick up some test cases, and then we'll walk it.
Yeah.
Something like that will definitely, we had it in mind. Unfortunately, this Chinese virus came and disrupted a lot of things.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll take it up from there. Yeah. Next is Dr. Ramkumar. Sorry, see Ramkumar Rudrapatla garu. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, Shefali ji. Namaskar. Ma'am, in fact, at times I keep wondering about a couple of things which I'll share with you, and I want you to react to what I'm saying. Now, do you feel that a constitution of India is strong enough to protect the interest of the majority as it stands today? Question one. The other question is that are our institutions in the constitution, for example, like the press, like the judiciary, are they really in sync with the majority aspirations of our country? What is your opinion about it? What is the use of tinkering from the sides without catching the substance of the core issue?
So your first question, I'm not really equipped to handle. So equipped to answer rather. So I'm not an expert on the constitution. So I'm not in a position to answer it. But I'll answer your second question. The second question is, there's a huge disconnect between what the majority in this country wants or what the majority of this country thinks and what the mainstream media thinks or what the judiciary thinks, which is why we saw 2014 and which is why we saw 2019. And even now, no matter what the left liberals say on Twitter or what the judiciary gives judgments, the people on the street think very differently. People on the streets are very rooted. They're very connected with the Indian thought. They're very connected with the Indian ethos still. So yes, there's a huge disconnect between what the majority of India thinks and what the judiciary believes it thinks or what the mainstream media believes it thinks.
Yeah, just a corollary. Sorry, Giridharji, with your permission. See, look at the other democracies of the world, like Great Britain. You look at the United States of America. Look at other democracies of the world. In fact, you don't have these kind of debates, without a direction in any one of these countries when it comes up to the majority community's aspirations. So why is it that, if Hindus are in a majority, you're not able to emphasize and, get the constitution, deliver what you want? I think that the entire weakness lies there.
I would say yes, but again, I'm not really equipped to handle the first part of your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think the legal issues at the ground level are completely different. Maybe the law is intended for certain things as the people who devise that particular section or law, but then at the implementation, it's a local beat constable who is actually applying it. So we've seen absurd things like somebody writing a cartoon on Mamata Banerjee is getting arrested, all that stuff. So I think we don't have a dearth of laws. It's all about the implementation, the interpretation.
Absolutely.
And implementation is
Absolutely.
what we are suffering from. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like what you rightly said, I think any amount of blitzkrieg on all the social media doesn't really affect the common man on the ground. We have seen it in Andhra Pradesh elections. Chandrababu Naidu's Telugu Desam party, they had stormed all the media. I mean, social, print, you name it, electronic media, massive advertisement blitzkrieg. In spite of it, he just got 23 seats. I mean, it's completely wiped out, literally. So
no, he didn't get the national mood also, right? So he went around trying to build a coalition, thinking that there's going to be a third front and he is going to be the kingmaker. What happened? He didn't get even a single seat. So even politicians miss out on reading the mood of the majority. See, the one thing that the Prime Minister has got absolutely correct is this last mile delivery. So even though I may think on Twitter saying that whatever I am saying on Twitter is setting the agenda, no, it is the last person getting a gas cylinder or a toilet or 5,000 rupees into their Jan Dhan account. That is what is setting the agenda, truly.
Yeah, perfect. I think he's got the pulse of the people on the ground. That's what
exactly
matters.
Exactly.
Sure. Archana ji, please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Please.
Okay. I wanted to ask one question. Whenever on social media some left wingers are propagating anything, and when we are countering, they start sending a message that WhatsApp is going to be watched by government, and we are actually, the admin will be given a punishment. and then what admin does, it closes the group. It happens many a times, and we are not able to tell our side. What I have seen 5 or 6 times, I have been warned like this. So I just wanted to know what exactly the situation is on the WhatsApp, and how exactly we can convince the admins, and how exactly we can convince the youth that we should not get scared of at least saying the truth. I wanted to know this tip from you exactly.
See, I have always believed in speaking up my mind. There have been many efforts to silence my voice, but I have never really given in to them. So this particular point of view, this particular issue, I don't know how to address with the local, WhatsApp admins closing. But do understand that that message can be used both ways, right? So the same message, you also can put it on the WhatsApp media if you find the leftists are doing the propaganda. It's not just that one side. It's all political opinions, right? It's not just the Hindu side. It's the other side also. So we can also use the same instruments against them if we do it smartly enough. But the point is we don't do it strategically. So that is something that we could learn from the other side.
That's true. Even I'm just seeing that Op India, the news from Op India is Arnab Goswami is going to have FIR for asking questions on questions to Sonia Gandhi. And the same I have seen that this Arundhati Roy has said so many wrong facts on BBC. Now she is not going to get.
Yeah.
So actually, admins get scared of that if anything happens wrong, then we will be caught and all that, and they start actually demoralizing the right wingers. That no, you should not say anything. Arey, hum fas jayenge. Kyun aisa kar rahe ho? Like this, they start saying, and we have to then take care of our admins also, and otherwise we have to leave the group. So this is something that our right wingers should know, that there is no such scaring and no such type of rules only for one side.
No, there isn't. The rules are applicable for both sides, right? The question is to frame your message also in such a way that there is no direct attack. For example, right now, if I say that I'm not going to buy vegetables from anyone who spits on fruits, from anyone who throws stones at the police. I've not taken the name of any community or anything, but my message is very clear. So nobody can tell me, this is my right to say that I will not spend money buying fruits from, this is basic hygiene, right? I'm not going to buy fruits from somebody who spits on the fruits. But if you say boycott is a particular community, that will be considered as hate mongering.
Sure. Thank you, Anand. Thank you.
Yeah, I may just add, actually, governments are also maturing, madam. I see that, initially, a simple post in Orkut, people could get arrested and what have you. But now slowly even the governments have realized that only very, very extreme cases they're actually taking any action. At least to my knowledge, in the recent past, I have not seen any action against the WhatsApp posts. No WhatsApp admin has been arrested, at least to my knowledge, in the recent past. And I'm sure there's a lot of fake news which is going on in this Chinese virus issue also, but that is nobody's got arrested. Governments also understand, there's a lot of fluff that goes on here. They cannot keep arresting every Tom, Dick, and Harry. There are lakhs of fake news that are going on. How many admins are they going to arrest? I don't think that's going to happen. Only some targeted, where extremely vicious propaganda machines are there. Maybe they might go about it. But Shafali ji, you should tell me, is there any case of any WhatsApp admin getting arrested in the recent past? To your knowledge?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah. So I don't think, Archana ji, we need to get scared about it. I think you can assure your people that, we don't want to be abusive, like what Shafali ji said. We don't want them to be abusive, but let them be free to air their views. Yeah. Thank you. Next is Shankar Pandey ji. Shafali ji, Shankar Pandey ji is from Shillong. He is Meghalaya and is a Nagar Karyava for Shillong. Pandey ji, go ahead. Yeah.
Namaskar, Shafali ji.
Namaste.
I follow you on Twitter and I'm a huge fan of yours. It's a great talk. My question is, are we lacking in institution building? Because other than social media, all the mainstream media space to the other point of view. So Indian Express, like you said, gives a spin to fake media against us, and the Telegraph and NDTV. So don't you think we should also look at building our own institutions like the Republic Channel? And the other thing, with Giridhar's permission, the earlier speaker asked one question about the Constitution of India being anti-majority, being a lawyer and doing through one line that Constitution of India per se is not anti-majority, but the amendment done by Indira Gandhi emergency when entire opposition leaders were behind bars. By adding the word secular is itself, give that Constitution of India is anti-majority. Yes, but this is obviously not the purview of the debate.
So your question was, should we build institutions? Of course, absolutely. But you must understand that institutions are not built in one day. The other side has had experience for 70 years. They pretty much had the run for academia. They pretty much had the run of mainstream media, which is why they could build institutions. But having said that, right now, the top 2 TRP rated news channels, which are basically Republican Times now, are basically having the guts to talk about stuff like love jihad. They're actually calling out the lynching of the Hindu sadhus, and they are not mincing words. I mean, if you see Arnab's show, whether you like him or not, he is pretty upfront about his views. And that has not happened overnight, right? It has happened in the past 5 years. So yes, slowly, institutions will be built. Right now, there is a Swaraja on our side. There is an Op India on our side. So institutions are being built. But then again, 70 years, you can't compare it with 6 years. There is a huge disparity there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Then Sanjay Kapoorji, please go ahead, sir.
Shefali, first of all, compliments on your nice talk. I just have a small little request. All of us may not be lucky enough to attend workshops on Twitter. I would request you, in case you are able to give us the kind of a small write-up or ready reckoner of or something on the lines of do's and don'ts of handling Twitter. Although I have an account on Twitter for the last about maybe a couple of years, but I have been active in just about the last 14 odd days. Being an army man, what I now started doing is to engage on the other side of the line of control and address on both the sides, that is Pakistan occupied Kashmir as well as our own Kashmiri brethren. We need to actually kind of change their opinions, and as they say that we need to do kind of a social and psychological engineering. Right. I have been in the army for over 30 years. So what unified us was, first of all, the uniform and the purpose. When we talk about unity, you mentioned, and you had three mentions of unity. What is going to unify our nation? Is again Pulwama or Balakot, because when COVID came in, we still were divided lot, and unfortunately, because of this division in we know Marcus in Delhi, that this infection has spread all over the country. What is it going to take for us to again unite? That's the question.
No, I think on the ground we are united. Otherwise, you wouldn't see, if the Prime Minister said light lamps, you wouldn't see such a response, right from Ambani to people staying in slums. So the nation has always been united. It is some people who are deliberately trying to give a picture that the nation is divided. We are not as divided as the left would like us to believe. They would like us to believe that they are very good at exploiting our fault lines, and they're very good at exploiting the fissures that are already in there and trying to say that you are divided. But I think as a nation, we are still largely united, and it's the Indic ethos that unites us. So that is what we need to focus on.
Okay. I think he wants to ask, yeah. Can you be brief, sir? Can you just be brief, yeah? Just a question. Thanks.
Very short, very short. Again, honestly, we have a lot of giants amongst us. I would take it with a pinch of salt when you were saying that we are united by purpose. fine. We a lot of people have come forward to help out and to contribute to the nation building, but we require to actually do a lot of resetting and reboot towards the unity side. That's it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, next is Sridharji. Go ahead, yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah, Didi, actually, I'm a huge admirer of you, because especially
Thank
the way
you.
you exposed this, sophisticated Islamist like Javed Akhtar. I thoroughly enjoyed, like a kind of, kaima kind of feeling. I felt like that. Anyway, the question part. Basically, you said that we need content providers or content creators, right?
Yeah.
But when we have a magazine like Swaraj Mag, which is like, as I see that it is kind of a respectable place it has in the right wing world, and it probably the only source where we can have a proper citations, we can circulate the things. But if you come to subscription part, even in the 70 people who gathered here, I don't think not more than 25% would be having a subscription with Swaraj Mag. So are we really sustaining them? When we complain about that we don't have a content, when somebody creates content for us, we are really not providing the nourishment that they require by giving a simple subscription like 1 year subscription, something like that. And also you said about the small video content where you can have a very good video with good captions and all that. There is something called Upward. Probably you know about it.
Yeah.
Nobody really gives even a 300 rupees. So when we complain that we don't have a content creators, or when we don't have this thing, somebody comes up with such kind of Swaraj Mag or Upward, are we really sustaining them? Are we really, when we meet 100 people, or suppose even in this call, why can't, when Giridhar Garu, why can't we can give a call saying that we can go for subscription, a mass subscription like Swaraj Mag, or give some donation like upward to 200 rupees at least, something that why we are not doing it. Other part, the leftist part, they do it very, very, strategically. Anywhere they meet it, they will have persons who take the donations, who will have subscriptions. They will do it on the spot. Why we are not doing that? Thank you.
That's a very good idea, actually. That's an excellent idea. In fact, every such Zoom call, you should pick up one cause and say that, okay, you all attended this call. I would like you to donate to this cause. Every day one. Today Swaraj Mag, tomorrow Upward, day after tomorrow Free, then Op India. That's a very, very good suggestion.
Yeah, when I met Jagannathan ji in India Ideas Conclave in Vadodara, I had told him that I had just subscribed for the magazine. So he shook my hands and hugged me.
No, what I'm saying is that
just
we
one,
should
but I mean, what Sridharji said is very appropriate.
We should give a call to action.
Yeah, we put lakhs of money in, Tirupati Hundi, but we don't give it for the Hindu causes. I think we have crores of bhakts, people who are religious, but we hardly have real, Indians who are fighting for the Indian cause. That is where we are struggling.
No, that is what he said is a very good idea, that instead of, making a general observation like that, every day after this Zoom call, if I request everybody to at least today I am talking, so I pick up my cause and say, I would like you to do, since I've spent 1 hour talking to you, here is something I need you to do. I need you to subscribe to Swaraj magazine. It's my appeal to you. Out of 100 people, I don't know how many will do, but even if 20 people listen to it, it is still 20 subscription for Swaraj, right? Perfect. That, every day when you have guests, you ask them, and at the end of the day, you can say that, okay, I am giving you a chance to say that this is my favorite charity or this is my favorite cause, and I would request all the people who are listening to me to support that cause. It's a very good idea, actually.
Perfect. Actually, great. In fact, subscription is one, and even simple. I don't know how many of us are actually following Shafala Vaidyaji. How many of us are following P Gurus in YouTube? We don't. A lot of people, they don't even follow our own handles also. And yes, as far as money is concerned, you're bang on, Sridharji. Thanks a lot for the suggestion. In fact, Pragya Bharati itself, we struggle a lot for money. But then we don't show our troubles when we present ourselves in the public front. That's the way life is. Yeah. Vikram Reddy Garu, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah, namaste. It's nice to hear from you. I have two things to share. I run a small organization called Hindu Bandham Garvapasi on Vietnam. And parallelly, I meet a lot of my friends and I try to explain to them. The problem here is, apart from, okay, we have our enemies, called leftists. Within our educated class, within the city people, rural areas also, there are a lot of ignorant people among Hindus itself who don't come out and they don't acknowledge that there is some problem happening around for Hindus here.
No, but okay. What's your specific question? I think your audio is not great. Maybe just raise the question and then we'll leave it there.
Excuse me, just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Dog.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Can I speak?
Yeah, please. Your audio, Vikramji, your audio is not great. So kindly be just specific to the question so that, we don't have the breakage. Yeah.
Yes. See, what I noticed is a lot of Hindus, okay, so-called dedicated Hindus who live in cities and in rural areas, they are not supporting the Hindu cause in the sense they feel what we speak against Islam or the so-called Tabligis, they say, no, this is not good. We as India, we should all be united. So this is a problem. How do we address this issue?
Okay.
See, there is not a single point solution. There is no one magic formula which basically says that, if you do this, every Hindu will turn very politically opinionated or will start supporting Hindu causes. It has to be done one mind at a time, one person's opinion changed at a time. And I already see that happening slowly, but gradually, but it is happening. But no, I mean, there is nothing that I can tell you that this is the magic formula. And if you do this, then everybody will be turning a very, I would say, active Hindu. So unfortunately, no, we are not a nation like that. We are not a people like that.
Yeah, okay. I think next I would call Omji, Om Vadalpatla. Please go ahead, sir. Omji, please ask your question.
Giridharji is going to take
another 5-10 minutes. Yeah, 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Can we just take last 2 or 3 questions because I need to go and prepare dinner for my family.
Yeah, I understand. We'll close it in like 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Giridharji. Shafalji, thank you very much for allowing me to ask you in this forum. I know you're late for your dinner, but I'll make it short. Thank you for your presentation. First off, it was informative and it was helpful to understand. I would make my question crisp and just one focused. My first focus is something known as filter bubbles, which I believe you're probably familiar with. It's an old term coined by Obama's government when they talked about the democracy being under threat because people gravitate towards one side or the other because of algorithms or because of self-selection. We have a potential for thing happening. Okay. How can we prevent that from happening, and how can we improve our content or build platforms to prevent that from happening? Hello, was I clear?
Yeah.
So
I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very real problem that you could be stuck in your own echo chamber and you would not be aware of what is happening around you, which is why it is essential to follow people whom you ideologically oppose and to ensure that you read publications which put forth their point of view also.
But right now, the Hindutva community doesn't necessarily have that kind of bandwidth to actually follow people from so-called other side. We only see back on the Twitter and we engage, and it's basically shoot out. It's not really deep scholarship. It's not really actual critique of the side. And
No, which is why I said it's a long and slow journey, you know. Originally, I mean, you cannot find an entrenched system that has had everything at its disposal for 70 years. With suddenly overnight with a couple of publications and create scholars out of nowhere. It's a long, painful process. But you need to invest in institutions now. You need to invest in people now. And you need to ensure that the young people who are on your side, who are really talented, are groomed and who are given opportunities to do some serious scholarship and research.
Okay, great. Thank you, ma'am. I think we'll take the last question now. Nandakishore ji, please go ahead. Yeah.
Namaste, everyone. Shefali ji, namaste. I have 2 points. One is it's a request. The discussion started with the genuine authenticity of the Hindutva terms. So about a year back, dharmawiki.org. It was a website that was inaugurated by Dr. Subramaniam Swamy and developed by Hindu fans only. So I would request people like you who have a big fan following, you are requested to periodically promote such platforms where authentic information about Hindutva, Hindu Dharma can be provided to the beginners or the new generation. So this was the first thing. Second, it's a question to you. Like in a recent case of Miss Rangoli Chandel, when she was badly outraged on the Hindu stand she took on, and an FIR was launched against her. So first aspect, how to handle such situation. Second, which type of support you expect from the followers or the fans? Thank you.
The first question, actually, I already did in some parts of my speech. You need to be very careful about the content you put forward. You need to recheck again videos you're sharing is already. It's not a mistake. Then you should be able to take it back and say I apologize. And more importantly, you should be able to understand that there are certain trigger terms like kill, idiot, like moron, which people on Twitter, which are not politically correct Twitter or there is they spot it. You make a study of this, and you cannot use terms of Twitter like shoot somebody to get away with it. It's not work.
Okay, I think there seems to be some connection issue at your end. Yeah, now you're okay. Now you're fine. Yeah. I think we'll close it at that. Just that our own, Twitter team, we have social media team member, Dr. Krishna Kandala, will ask the last question and then we'll close it there. Pragya Bharati's own team member. Krishna Kandala garu, please go ahead, sir. And then we'll close it off to you.
Ma'am, I have just came in the middle of the meeting, and it's something which I've been trying to make as much time as possible to attend these meetings. Now, very quickly, I was wondering what is currently the government stance on the change in the education, especially the history that is being taught to the earlier generations and the current generations. So is there any positive move from the government in terms of actually changing these historical textbooks, which would help the future generations get the right narrative going forward?
You know, wrong person to be answering this question. I'm not government, nor am I part. So I really am. But yeah, like this to be taken up as a priority issue in policy. And the minister did say is that book needs to be taught to children, but when we implemented, there is actually going to be cases as good as whether the government it, yes, I could change it. Should be priority, yes, that it should be it because this is where you capture mind. But when it is going to be done, I really have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even your signal is breaking out, madam. I think we'll close it at that. We had some very useful, thought-provoking discussion today, and hopefully we have some takeaways here, like supporting financially some of our own websites and some of our own organizations, and trying to promote internally. I think we have had some very good takes, and thank you so much, ma'am. Taking out your busy schedule and coming and talking to us, and hopefully we should see you soon in South India somewhere, trying to talk to us on the social media war. And again, once again, I thank all of you for sparing your time this evening, and as always, we'll have a next call tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. Please do subscribe to our Twitter handle, Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel, and in case you are not already done. This video also would be uploaded into our social media pretty soon. Thank you all so much. Bharat Mata Ki Jai.